When Hannah first saw the contract, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from hope. The paper lay neatly on the glass table of the fertility clinic, filled with signatures, clauses, and carefully chosen words. To everyone else, it was a legal agreement. To Hannah, it was a chance to start over. At 32, Hannah had learned how quickly life could fall apart. 2 years earlier, she had lost her husband, Mark, in a highway accident that left her not only widowed, but drowning in debt. Hospital bills, rent, and a future that suddenly felt unbearably empty pressed down on her every day. She worked 2 jobs, yet the nights remained long and lonely. That was when she saw the advertisement. Seeking a surrogate, generous compensation, confidential. She had hesitated for weeks before applying. It wasn't an easy decision. Carrying a child for someone else meant lending her body, her time, and her emotions. But Hannah was healthy, compassionate, and perhaps most importantly, she understood loss. The intended parents were a couple named Daniel and Claire Whitmore. They met in a softly lit consultation room. Claire sat upright, elegant but visibly nervous, while Daniel held her hand tightly, as if afraid she might drift away. "We've been trying for 10 years, Claire said quietly. "Doctors say I can't carry a pregnancy." There was no bitterness in her voice, only exhaustion. Hannah listened, nodding, feeling an unexpected warmth toward them. She saw not wealth or status, but 2 people desperate for a miracle. "I'll take good care of your baby," Hannah said simply. Claire's eyes filled with tears. The pregnancy began smoothly. At first, everything felt professional and distant. Monthly checkups, polite messages, scheduled calls. The baby was referred to as the baby, never my baby. Hannah reminded herself daily that she was a vessel, not a mother. But as weeks passed, things changed. Claire started attending appointments with her, asking questions, laughing nervously when she heard the heartbeat. Daniel sent Hannah messages late at night, thanking her for the sacrifices she was making. One afternoon, Claire placed her hand gently on Hannah's growing belly. "She kicked," Hannah said with a small smile. Claire laughed, a soft, broken laugh that turned into tears. "I wish I could feel that," she whispered. In that moment, Hannah felt something shift. This wasn't just an arrangement, it was a shared journey. As the baby grew, so did Hannah's attachment. She spoke to the baby at night, telling stories, humming lullabies her mother used to sing. Sometimes guilt crept in. Was she crossing an invisible line? She reminded herself that love didn't have to mean ownership. Still, when she felt the baby respond to her voice, her heart ached. One evening, Hannah found herself in the hospital, alone and scared. Complications had arisen earlier than expected. She called Claire first, her voice shaking. Claire arrived within minutes, hair unbrushed, eyes wide with fear. "I'm here," she said, gripping Hannah's hand. "Whatever happens, I'm here." Hours later, the doctor reassured them. The baby was fine, for now. That night, as Claire slept in the chair beside the bed, Hannah realized something important. This child was already deeply loved by more than one woman. The final months were the hardest. Physically exhausted and emotionally torn, Hannah struggled with the approaching goodbye. She avoided thinking about the delivery day, afraid that once the baby was gone, the silence would be unbearable. On a quiet afternoon, Claire surprised her with a small gift. Inside the box was a silver necklace, delicate and simple, with a tiny charm shaped like a heart. "It's not payment," Claire said quickly. "It's gratitude for everything." Hannah hugged her, longer than she meant to. "I'll be okay," Hannah said, though she wasn't sure it was true. The baby was born just before dawn. The delivery room was filled with tension, hope, and whispered prayers. When the baby's first cry pierced the air, Hannah felt tears stream down her face. The nurse gently placed the newborn in Claire's arms. Claire sobbed openly, pressing the baby to her chest, while Daniel wrapped both of them in his arms, shaking with joy. Hannah watched, heartbreaking and healing at the same time. The doctor turned to her. "Do you want to hold her?" Hannah hesitated. Then she nodded. For a brief moment, she cradled the baby, warm, fragile, alive. She kissed the tiny forehead and whispered, "You are so loved." Then she handed her back. Weeks later, Hannah returned to her small apartment. The rooms felt emptier, but not hollow. The compensation paid off her debts. She reduced her work hours. For the first time in years, she could breathe. One morning, a letter arrived. Inside was a photo of the baby, now smiling, wrapped in a soft blanket. On the back, Claire had written, "She will always know how she came into this world, through kindness, strength, and love." Hannah smiled through tears. She wasn't the mother, but she had been the beginning, and sometimes that was enough. Life did not return to normal for Hannah. She had expected grief, maybe even emptiness, but what surprised her most was the silence. No heartbeat inside her, no gentle kicks at night, no reason to wake up early and count weeks. The necklace Claire had given her lay on the bedside table, catching the morning light. Hannah touched it before getting up, as if it could ground her. She tried to move on. She enrolled in an online course she had once dreamed of finishing. She started taking long walks in the evenings. On the surface, everything looked fine, but inside, something felt unfinished, like a story that had stopped mid-sentence. Then, the messages slowed. At first, Claire sent photos every week. The baby sleeping, the baby smiling, the baby wrapped in pastel blankets. Hannah replied with warm words, careful not to ask for too much. But gradually, life pulled them in different directions. Weeks passed, then a month. Hannah told herself it was natural. Claire was a new mother, a busy one. Hannah was no longer part of the daily picture. Still, the ache remained. One rainy afternoon, Hannah received a phone call that changed everything. It was Daniel.
"Hannah, I'm sorry to call so suddenly," he said, his voice strained. "Claire is in the hospital." Her heart skipped. What happened? She collapsed. Exhaustion. Postpartum complications. The doctors say she needs rest. Real rest. Hannah didn't hesitate. "Is the baby okay?" "Yes, but—" He paused. "We were wondering, this might sound strange, but would you be willing to visit?" The rain streaked down Hannah's window as she held the phone tightly. "Yes," she said. "Of course." The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and quiet fear. Claire looked smaller than Hannah remembered, her face pale against the white pillow. When she saw Hannah, her eyes filled instantly. "I didn't know who else to call," Claire whispered. "I'm sorry if this is unfair." Hannah sat beside her and took her hand. "You don't have to apologize." The baby lay asleep in a bassinet nearby. For the first time since the birth, Hannah was alone with her again. "She cries a lot at night," Claire said softly. "I love her more than anything, but sometimes I feel like I'm failing." Hannah understood that feeling all too well. "You're not failing," she said gently. "You're human." Claire closed her eyes, tears slipping out. "When she was inside you, she was calm, strong. I keep thinking maybe she feels safer with you." The words hung heavy in the air. Hannah's chest tightened. She chose her words carefully. "She feels safe because she's loved, and she is, by you." When Claire was discharged, Daniel asked Hannah to stay for a few days, just to help, just until things settled. Hannah agreed, telling herself it was temporary.
but the days blurred into nights filled with feeding schedules, soft crying, and quiet conversations in the kitchen. Hannah moved naturally, instinctively. She knew the baby's rhythms, her moods, the way she liked to be held. Claire watched from a distance at first, then closer. One night, as Hannah rocked the baby to sleep, Claire spoke from the doorway. "She stops crying with you," Claire said. There was no accusation, only truth.
Hannah swallowed. "I can step back if—" "No," Claire said quickly. "I don't want that. I don't know where I fit yet." Hannah met her eyes. "You fit here. I'm just helping you find your footing." Claire nodded slowly. But emotions are rarely so simple. As weeks passed, tension grew, quiet, unspoken, dangerous. Claire began to withdraw. Daniel grew uncertain, and Hannah felt herself slipping into a role she had never intended to take. One evening, Claire finally broke. "I'm afraid," she said, voice shaking, "afraid that she needs you more than me." Hannah felt tears rise. "That will never be true." "But what if it is?" Claire asked. "You carried her. You know her in a way I never will." Hannah stood up, heart pounding. "Listen to me. Biology doesn't define motherhood. Love does. Presence does. And you are her mother." Silence followed. Then Claire whispered, "Then why does it feel like I'm borrowing my own child?" The words cut deep. Hannah realized then that staying, no matter how well-intentioned, was hurting them all. The next morning, Hannah packed her bag. Daniel tried to protest. Claire said nothing, tears streaming silently. "This is the right thing," Hannah said softly. "You don't need me anymore. You never did." Claire stood suddenly and hugged her, trembling. "I needed you, just not forever." They held each other for a long moment, two women bound by something neither would ever fully explain. At the door, Hannah knelt by the baby's crib and placed the silver necklace inside. "For her," she whispered. Months later, Hannah stood on a small stage receiving her certificate. She had completed her course. She had started a new job. Life was moving forward again. Her phone buzzed. A message from Claire. A photo of a little girl taking her first steps. The caption read, "She walks because she learned to stand on love, yours included." Hannah smiled, tears in her eyes. Some bonds were not meant to last forever. They were meant to change us. 7 years passed quietly. Life reshaped Hannah in ways she never expected. She moved to a different city, found stability in her career, and learned how to live without constantly looking backward. The ache never fully disappeared, but it softened, like a scar that no longer hurt when touched. She told herself the story was finished. Then, one evening, an unfamiliar name appeared in her inbox, Claire Whitmore. Hannah stared at the screen for a long time before opening the message. "Hannah, I don't know if you'll want to hear from me after all this time, but our daughter, Lily, has started asking questions, real ones, about where she came from, about you. We think it's time, if you're willing." Hannah's breath caught. Lily? The name settled gently in her chest, as if it had always been there. She replied with trembling fingers, "I'm willing." They met in a park filled with late afternoon light. Lily was small for her age, with curious eyes and a cautious smile. She stood between her parents, clutching a stuffed rabbit. "That's Hannah," Claire said softly, "the woman I told you about." Lily steadied her, head tilted. "You're the one who carried me," she said matter-of-factly. Hannah knelt so they were eye to eye. "Yes, for a little while." "Did it hurt?" asked Lily. Hannah smiled. "Sometimes, but it was worth it." Lily considered this, then reached out and touched Hannah's hand. "Thank you." Those 2 words nearly broke her. They began meeting occasionally, always carefully, always with boundaries.
Hannah was not introduced as another mother. She was something else, something unique. Lily called her Hannah Aunt, a title she invented herself. At first, Claire watched closely, fear flickering behind her smiles. But as time passed, she relaxed. Lily returned home happier, more secure, never confused about where she belonged. One afternoon, Lily asked a question no one was prepared for. If Hannah hadn't helped, would I exist? Claire hesitated. Hannah answered instead. You exist because your parents wanted you more than anything. I just helped them find you. Lily nodded, satisfied. Claire's eyes met Hannah's, grateful, finally at peace. Years later, life delivered its final surprise. Hannah sat in a doctor's office, staring at test results she hadn't expected. You're pregnant, the doctor said gently. Hannah laughed and cried at the same time. At 40, she hadn't planned for this. She hadn't even known she could still carry a child. Fear came first, then wonder. She told Claire a week later. Claire listened silently, then reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'm happy for you, she said, and she meant it. When Lily heard the news, her reaction was immediate. I'm going to be a big sister? She asked. Hannah blinked. Well, kind of. Lily smiled proudly. I'll teach the baby everything. On a warm summer afternoon, Lily stood outside the hospital room, bouncing with excitement. When Hannah finally held her newborn son, Lily leaned close. He looks brave, Lily whispered. Hannah laughed softly. I think he'll be kind. Claire watched from the doorway, tears shining. In that moment, the past finally settled into place, not as pain, but as purpose. Some stories begin with birth, others begin with sacrifice, but the rarest ones, they begin with love and never truly end. The years settled into something steady. Hannah's son, Noah, grew into a quiet, thoughtful child with curious eyes. Lily adored him, not with jealousy, but with a fierce, protective love that surprised everyone. Though they did not share blood, they shared something deeper, a story rooted in choice. Every summer, the Whitmores visited. There were no long explanations anymore, no careful rules. Everyone knew their place, and no one felt threatened by it. Claire had grown into her motherhood fully, confident, present, and unafraid. Daniel laughed more than he used to, and Hannah no longer wondered where she belonged. One evening, as the children played in the garden, Claire and Hannah sat side by side on the porch steps. Do you ever regret it? Claire asked suddenly. Hannah knew what she meant. No, she said without hesitation. It shaped me. It didn't take anything away. Claire nodded. I used to think love was limited, like there was only so much to go around. And now? Hannah asked. Claire smiled softly. Now I know it multiplies. When Lily turned 16, she asked to hear the full story, not the simple version, the real one. They told her together, every hard choice, every fear, every moment of doubt. Lily listened quietly, tears sliding down her face. So, you chose me, she said at last. Yes, Claire said. Every single day, Hannah added. Lily hugged them both, holding on as if she finally understood something about herself that had always been missing. Time moved forward, as it always does. Hannah watched Lily graduate, fall in love, and leave for college. She watched Noah grow tall and stubborn and kind. She learned that love did not demand possession, only presence. Years later, when Hannah's hair had begun to gray, she received a handwritten letter. It was from Lily. I'm studying social work. I want to help families who think they're broken find new ways to be whole. I think I learned that from you. Hannah folded the letter carefully and held it to her chest. That night, She stood by the window, watching the lights of the city glow. For the first time, she felt no ache, only quiet gratitude. She had not been the mother. She had not been forgotten. She had been part of the story. And sometimes, that is the greatest legacy of all.